Hi, welcome to Stories at Work, a series where I share stories to help you build your business story repertoire. Let's start today's story. Walt Bettinger is the CEO of Charles Schwab. Charles Schwab is a large American financial services firm offering banking and wealth management services to retail and institutional clients. Walt Bettinger has been with the firm for over 27 years. He has been the CEO since 2008. This story is one which he shared in an interview with the New York Times. Youngest of 4 kids, he had a very normal upbringing in a very small farming community in Northwest Ohio. He was a good student and worked almost full-time at a grocery store for most of his high school. Now, throughout college, Walt maintained a perfect GPA of 4. GPA is measured on a scale of 4. Perfect student. His final exam was for a business strategy course. He wanted to graduate with a perfect average, so he spent many hours studying and memorizing formulas that were going to be required to do calculations for the case studies that usually came in this exam that needed to be solved during these exams. On the final day of the exam, the teacher came in and handed out the question paper to everyone. As is usually the norm, the question paper was placed with the face down on the desk. Walt was surprised that it was only one single piece of paper. He had expected this to be much longer than that. Now, once everyone had their papers, the professor said, "Okay, go ahead and turn it over." Now, to everyone's surprise, the other side of the paper was blank as well. And as the people looked at each other, wondering what was going on, the professor said, "I have taught you everything I can teach you about business strategy in the last 10 weeks. But the most important message, the most important question whose answer I want you to write on this sheet is this: what is the name of the lady who cleans this building?" Walt had no idea. He had seen her several times, but he had never bothered to ask her or take time to ask what her name was. Her name was Dottie. This was the only test he didn't get a perfect score. He got a B, which now he thinks he thoroughly deserves. That day, Walt learnt a very important lesson, and he resolved to never let such a thing ever happen again. He promised to himself that he would never ignore another Dottie in his life. What an impactful story. We are taught a whole bunch of things in our MBA colleges and during company training programs, but almost none of them teach us or nudge us to be more human. This story is a huge reminder that there is a soft side to being a leader that we sometimes overlook. This also reminds me of something else I read in a book by Tony Hsieh. Tony Hsieh was the founder of Zappos, the online footwear company that he later sold to Amazon. Now, Tony had crafted a very unique interview process for his company where he had many interview criteria, most very unique. But the one that stood out for me was this. Now, most people who came for an interview to Zappos would fly into Las Vegas and drive to the head office and factory, which was in the outskirts of the city. A company-appointed chauffeur would pick up the candidate from the airport and drop them off to the airport at the end of the day. The day consisted of a series of tests and interviews. This involved interaction with not only the hiring manager, but also with potential colleagues and subordinates. Views were taken from everyone. However, the view that counted most was that of the chauffeur. He was asked about the candidate's behavior and interaction. He was asked how he was treated by the candidate. If the treatment was bad or indifferent, the candidate wasn't hired, even if she or he had come up with flying colors in the other interactions. Now, what I like about the Walt Bettinger story is that most of us can relate to a Walt Bettinger. Small town boy, middle caste upbringing, a good student trying to and striving to be the best student he can be. But perhaps like Walt Bettinger, many of us in that race have ignored the Dotties in our lives. Where in business can we use this story? One, of course, is a leadership lesson about paying attention to people, about caring for people. The other is that little things like this can make a big difference to us as leaders and to the people we lead. I also love to use this story to give an example of the power of vulnerability. The question that Walt Bettinger was asked in the interview, which he was answering, was, what lesson did you learn in college? There were multiple options he had, right? Now, many of us would use examples that would put us in good light, show our astuteness, demonstrate our strengths. Yet, the fact that Walt decided to talk about a weakness made it an interview that has been shared across the world. Many articles have been written about this interview, including at the Harvard Business Review. I, for one, would have never heard of Walt if it hadn't been for that interview. It takes courage and self-confidence to be vulnerable, but it is inspiring. If you enjoyed today's episode, you will find many, many more on our website www.storyworks.in. These stories are searchable using the business point you want to make. For example, if you key in either caring or leadership or attention or humility on the website, you'll find the story. So when you're looking for a story, go to our website and search for your keyword. And I hope you'll find a story. The website and our YouTube channel has two playlists. The Story Bank playlist, which already has 66 stories, contains stories like this. Real incidences that you can share to drive home a business point or inspire people to take action. The other playlist is called Leaders Speak. This has videos where leaders have shared stories that have created opinions they have. If you are sharing the same opinion with your team or driving home a similar message, you could use that story. You can also join our WhatsApp group. The link is in the comment, where you get a copy of this video every time the video is released every week. Thanks for listening. See you next week. Bye for now.